All right. Hi guys, we're here with my friend Lisa. We've actually had an interview last year. I don't remember exactly what episode number it was, but I know so much happened since then. Yes. So I want you to just fill me in. I know like you're doing so many more things. I'm like, let's hear from you.
Oh goodness, yes, it has been a long time since we spoke, right? I know, and I'm so excited to be here with you today, first of all, so thank you. But yes, a lot's happened since I've spoken to you last. So let's see, so first off, after I retired from the Air Force, I was working out at Nellis Air Force Base as a dietitian and helping our warfighters and our, really all of our folks out there, to include our retirees and dependents, on eating healthy, trying to improve their overall wellness to perform at their best. So that contract ended though, unfortunately. So now I work for Weight Watchers, and I'm the only dietitian in Nevada for Weight Watchers, which has really been fun. It's all remote work, all from my home, and I really feel like I'm able to make a big impact in their lives and helping them become the best version of themselves. So that's one thing, and then the other thing is that I have a new title now. So I no longer am Ms. International 2023-2024. I just got a new title, and it's Ms. USA International 2025. So I competed out in California for that pageant. When? It was a wonderful experience. It was the beginning of March, so it wasn't that long ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun. Met some amazing people, and it's just been an adventure. And it's, the pageant world has opened up some doors for me, so I've been doing some modeling as well. In fact, I was out at Women United event today doing a fashion show, so I got to be involved in that.
So you were doing all that and still look fresh for this podcast. Wow.
It's just really fun. And I think what I love most about some of those opportunities is because I get to meet such extraordinary people like you. And I always get to listen to their stories and all of the things that they've accomplished in their lives, and it inspires me and it helps me become a better version of myself, so I think we help each other in that realm.
That is amazing. And I know you've actually been doing a lot of the wellness coaching. Do you still do that?
Yes, okay. I do. So in addition to being a registered dietitian, I work with people on just overall wellness coaching. So we talk about stress management, we talk about sleep hygiene, and how those things really impact your overall health. And to me, they're almost the foundation of it all. So if you're not sleeping well, if you are very stressed, it's really hard to then also eat healthy and exercise and do all these other things for your overall wellness because the foundation is just not strong. So we usually start there in terms of wellness coaching. I help them try to figure out the main stress in their lives, how we can alleviate some of that stress, and then in turn, how that can better help their sleep. So it all kind of is connected.
That's so true, and sleep is vital.
Oh my goodness, yes. And not many of us get enough sleep. It's very, very true, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is. I actually, so this year I went a different route. Last year I was just, kind of coming up with my own questions. But this year I have a group, so I ask the people in the group to provide me with the questions because I want them to be included.
Sure, of course.
So I actually have the first question.
Okay.
Can you tell us about the moment you realized that focusing on plant-based nutrition was the game changer for your clients' performance? Are you still doing the plant-based?
I absolutely am. So I practice it myself, and I started eating that way about 5 years ago. I was motivated by my son, who is a vegan, actually, and I was trying to support him. So I kind of dabbled into the plant-based nutrition, and I found through that my health just dramatically improved. We're talking cholesterol dropped by upwards of 40 points. I had a decrease in blood pressure. I leaned out. I went from about 25% body fat down to 13% body fat, which was not what I was trying to do either. It was just the the diet itself is just so low in the saturated fat and cholesterol and sodium and all of these things, and so high in antioxidants and phytonutrients and all of these wonderful components that really help your metabolic health. So that was my journey and my story. But since then, I always talk to people. I always try to include some plant-based nutrition talk. I definitely don't want to push people to eating vegetarian or being a vegan, because it's a personal choice. I did it for a couple reasons, not only to support my son and help him in his journey, but also for my health and for the environment. So it was a combination of a few different reasons, but everybody has, a personal choice to make on that. And the ones I have worked with that have wanted to go more plant-based have also seen some dramatic changes, big increase in energy, decrease in weight. They have gotten off of some of their medications they've been on, like high cholesterol medications and blood pressure medications, actually gone off those medications. So they have seen a shift in their health from having these chronic diseases to no longer having those problems anymore, and completely, change through their lifestyle and by eating a little bit more plant-based.
Interesting.
Yep. So I've seen it firsthand by several of my patients and myself.
That is awesome.
But everybody's different. Everybody's different. You get some people that it may not be quite as effective for, but I think there's elements of it that really help us all in our overall health.
So some type of detox and just kind of, what about the fasting, like complete no food? What do you think?
I think that is also individual, and I've worked with a lot of patients who really feel that it helps them, and they become more mentally clear in a sense. They have less brain fog. They have more energy.
Too. Yeah, after
they see weight
hours.
loss. Yes. And there's certain people that I think that can do it well. The problem is with some of those types of ways of eating is that you have to be able to sustain it. So not everybody can fast for 16 hours and then have a small eating window. And it may not be really conducive to just life in general. When your family's eating and you're supposed to be fasting, that may not, work so well in your family dynamics. So I think those are things that people sometimes don't think about. So when they go that route, they want to ask themselves, is it realistic, and is it something they can sustain? And is it something that they, ask themselves why they want to go that direction? But it has helped a lot of people I have worked with, and I respect what they're doing, and I help ensure that in their eating window, they're getting what they need within that time frame, all the nutrients, all meeting their calorie needs, getting everything they need within that small eating window, and it can be done.
Oh, you're talking about intermittent fasting, right? Okay. But what about like an actual 4 days, no food fasting,
oh, wow.
just water?
Yeah, I've seen that a few times, and it's usually for religious reasons, and 100% support that, because I understand why people do that for religious reasons, absolutely. I think staying hydrated is important, obviously, during that time. Hydration is, water is the forgotten nutrient and the most important.
The one. Yeah.
So and that's done for religious reasons, which I would never, ever in a million years debate that with them. That's something that's important to them. So I would support them with that. And then, gradually kind of after they're outside of their fasting period, gradually get back to getting, to eating a normal diet.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard that after 4 days, you really have to ease into it.
Ease into it, yes.
Yeah, you gotta eat liquids, I think.
Absolutely, just to get your body used to food again, because even in that 4-day time frame, things change a little bit internally.
But they say that even a lot of people are talking about potentially curing cancer or something with the cells rejuvenating if you can do that. Is that what are your thoughts on that? Is that
I don't know if that's more of a myth or if that's been necessarily well researched, I should say. Not necessarily a myth. More has there been enough research backing that? And that part I don't know. If there's been a lot of studies on that sort of thing. There are a lot of things out there though right now about how, having these times of some fasting, may help with longevity, increasing lifespan, and actually losing weight. and keeping it off. So there's some interesting things out there on it. I think the jury's still out to determine,
the
if
whole cancer thing,
if it would be truly effective in that sense. And I think, again, everybody's so individualized. I know for me personally, if I was to go too long without eating, my blood sugar drops and I get shaky. Right. So it wouldn't work for me. I'm a good example of someone it wouldn't work with. But I think there's other people that can go longer periods of time without eating, and they're able to do it, and they feel better.
Yeah. What about high blood pressure? You mentioned that twice. I remember when the numbers were a lot lower, and I wonder, why did they actually increase the numbers? So, for example, what is you have high blood pressure number right now? 220, 320?
It's so there's the systolic and the diastolic blood pressure. So the top number, if you want to keep it under about 130, right around there, and the bottom number. Is it different in Europe?
Yeah, which is crazy.
That's
it's another
interesting.
Crazy fact.
Oh, no, it's interesting. And the diastolic, you want to keep that usually under about 80, or around 80 is good, or under that.
So wasn't that lower though? Maybe 10, 20 years ago, those numbers were a lot lower. So why are they increasing?
Maybe because the standards change. Like most people tend to have maybe a little bit higher. I don't know. That's a great question. I didn't even know that. I didn't know that it's over the years kind of eased up a little bit.
So why are they cooking these numbers like they're not really? Yeah.
And it's funny with blood pressure because you could have elevated blood pressure, mildly elevated, and you don't know. You can't really feel it until it gets really high or really low. And then your body tends to have some symptoms, related to those things. And that's when people realize, something's not right and need to go see a physician. But everybody, again, is different with that too. And same thing with heart rate. I work with people all the time, especially the war fighters. They may have an extremely low heart rate compared to the average person because they are so active and very fit, and their heart rate tends to run a little lower, than somebody who's not in that kind of environment. So it's just so interesting to me how everybody is just so unique and different in every way. It's hard to put them all in this, square box and kind of make it where everybody, is the same in all those areas, and it's just not true. So,
which is another thing that kind of makes me question the whole big pharma situation, because I'm thinking, why are they putting everything in this, where you're basically putting everybody in those numbers? That's not going to work for everybody. Those numbers are really not
And same thing with weight too. I think that same thing goes with weight. I love the fact that things have shifted in a sense where, people that may have a bigger body frame, they're maybe a little bigger, they still can be metabolically healthy. It doesn't mean they're unhealthy. They may be very metabolically healthy at a bigger weight, and I think it's great that things have shifted in some of that in society. So we're more accepting of some of those things than we were before,
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Right.
And another thing that I was back at the topic with the pressure, high blood pressure. Is it true that if you have high blood pressure, you're not going to get Alzheimer's? Is that another myth?
I have never heard that one. That's a good one. I have not heard that.
Yeah, I'm out here. I'm the one that always has these controversial questions.
So if you do have high blood pressure, if you don't?
If you do have it, you won't get Alzheimer's.
I have not heard that one. That one's a new one for me. So I'm going to have to, after this, I'm going to have to delve into that and see what's out there on that one. I would think it'd be just the opposite, because with high blood pressure, usually there's friction going on inside those arteries because the blood's being pushed through the arteries at a very, rapid rate, and the arteries are starting to get damaged on the inside, which can lead to atherosclerosis with plaque forming in those areas and potentially blood clots forming in the bloodstream that could get caught in those arteries, causing a stroke or a heart attack. And ultimately, and this is kind of interesting, there's a lot of connection between diet and the brain and also the heart, meaning that the same way of eating that's good for your heart is also the same way of eating that's good for your brain. And that diet typically is moderate in sodium and lower in saturated fat, higher in your all your polyphenols and your antioxidants and all of those types of things. So it's just that coming out, or I don't know where you'd seen it. I'm going to have to look at it because I have never heard that before. Because I would think it'd be just the opposite. Everything I've ever known has been just the opposite. Yes.
Especially because Alzheimer's is like pretty much too much sugar in the brain, right?
It's really there. It's kind of interesting with
like
Alzheimer's.
A diabetes of the brain type.
There's actually some sclerosis in the brain too, similar to like what we see kind of in the heart. And when they do autopsies on people with Alzheimer's, they see some of that same plaque buildup. So that's why that connection is very similar. So. It happens over time. None of that happens overnight. It's years and years and years of not taking care of your body, not exercising, not sleeping well, smoking, drinking, all these types of things that people tend to do. Eating high-fat foods, fried foods, a typical American diet, and you multiply that times year after year after year. And then people start facing these health concerns, and that's when they usually get more serious about turning things around. And the great thing is you can literally turn around all that damage, a good chunk of that damage that's been done. A lot of people think that if they've lived a life where maybe not unhealthy or an unhealthy lifestyle, they don't have to, or they kind of accept their fate in a sense. Their parents had Alzheimer's, or they had heart disease, and they think, well, I'm going to have the same thing. I might as well just eat what I want, and that's not true. They're finding out now that there's a lot of change that can happen within your lifestyle, can override your DNA and some of that genetic component. So you can actually prevent it from ever happening to you, even though you have a strong family history of it. So I find that fascinating.
Very. We're always learning so much with Lisa.
It's so fun. I love it. I love talking nutrition and health, and there's so many new things coming out. And it does get confusing though, because there's so many things out there that'll pop up, and you're like, what does this mean? Is this true?
Yeah.
So that's where I would tell people, when multiple studies, really hundreds of studies, have been done on that topic, and they've been like legit studies.
They make sense.
Right. Then maybe we can conclude something. But there's things that'll just pop up after one research study that may not even necessarily be a solid study, and it'll come out on the news or the radio or something like that, and people believe it to be true, and that may not be the case.
Yeah, I always want to do your research.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Before jumping to conclusions, absolutely.
Just ask the pros. With your expertise as a dietitian and your personal achievements, what's your number one nutritional habit for resilience under stress?
So I would say consistency. So even though, let's say my schedule may be really busy, I still always make time to eat breakfast, to have lunch, to have dinner, and make sure they're healthy, good choices. They're well balanced. I have a protein, I have a whole grain, I have fruits and vegetables as part of the meal. So I'm getting as much nutrition as I can, and what that does for me is keep my energy levels up. So as busy as I can get on some of these days, I still feel good because I'm fueling my body throughout the day like I should be. Also, hydration's the other one. So in between those meals, I'm drinking water. I'm drinking water. And that was a game changer too for me. I used to not drink as much water, and I started doing that, and then felt so much better. I had so much more energy. It was crazy.
It's so true.
It really, these little things make such a big difference. But I would say trying to fuel myself and making time to do that, because when you get really busy, a lot of times that gets pushed to, the sidelines, and you don't want to do that. Because ultimately what happens is when you get a chance to eat, you overdo it, and you tend to eat way too much. Maybe not necessarily the right foods either, and keep eating all the way till you go to bed, and that's one of the worst things you can do for your body and for your health.
Gosh. Did you notice, like, when we sit in front of the TV, if you watch TV, you tend to eat a lot more?
So true.
I'm like, what the heck did I just eat all
It's so
of
true.
this?
Yeah, it's so true. And I think some of that too is because we're just not paying attention to the actual food. We're distracted. We're watching TV. We're on our phones, and we're not mindfully eating. We're not focused on what we're actually doing, and it's just very easy to eat too much. you know?
Yeah.
And it can really add up very fast.
Yeah.
Very fast.
It's so wild. Yeah, that's a thing.
So I would say just not skipping meals is one of the biggest things that helps me keep the energy levels up, stay healthy and fit. Even on days that, I can't get exercise in or whatever, I still try to get those meals in and make sure they're healthy, well-balanced meals. And it doesn't take long for me to prep them either. They're really easy. Super simple. Yeah, I can make them in like a minute or two. Yes, mainly plant-based. I'm a pescatarian, so I do eat fish.
Oh, nice.
And actually, I do also eat yogurt, and I drink soy milk, and I do, eggs. I eat eggs. So I'm actually kind of a combination of a lot of things. So I would ultimately classify myself, if you really peel back the onion, as a Mediterranean style diet, yes. Which has been the one diet that I see constantly in everything I read, everything I look at. That's the diet that tends to be the best for preventing or even reversing chronic disease.
Yep, that's what I read.
Yes,
too. Yeah.
Very powerful way of eating, I think. And I'm still working on it. I always have room for improvement.
Wow, you look like you reached that.
I try. I really try to practice what I preach, and also I try to make it easy for people because, eating healthy can be a little daunting and it can get expensive too. So I work with people on helping them, shop healthy on a budget and look at some really quick, easy alternatives where they're still getting in the nutrients they need and they feel better and their health starts to improve, which is what it's all about.
That's amazing. So not only you help them lose weight, but you also help them shop on a budget.
I try. I did a lot of that actually at Nellis. I would take them to the commissary and we go aisle by aisle and look at the foods and teach them what to look for. And
dang, all that.
Speaking of too, while we're talking about this, I think one really good rule of thumb is when you pick up foods in the grocery store, make sure that there's very few ingredients. That's one of the first things that you could do. One of the best things you can do to ensure that you're eating better is just more fresh, less processed foods. If you're doing that, you are doing really well, because so many of those convenience foods are just so processed. And I think even just gradually starting to get to a less processed type of diet is going to benefit people in a great way, for sure.
So less ingredients,
yes,
the better.
Fewer the ingredients, the better. Shop the perimeter of the store where most of the fresh foods are at. That's always a good idea.
Yeah, obviously, you're right. Oh, wow, yeah. Well, how do you tailor nutritional plans for active duty personnel with unique physical and mental demands? How did you do that?
That is also a challenge. It's like an art and a science because each one of the operators are very different and their physical activity levels are different. And some of them are outside in their jobs working, some of them are inside, some of them are putting in a lot of time in the gym depending on what they're training for, what they're doing, what they need to accomplish in the scope of their jobs, depending on what their core job is in the military. So I take it slowly with them in the sense that really getting a good idea of what their typical schedule looks like, when they can fit in nutrition during their day to fuel their bodies, to make sure they're getting plenty of protein, in particular, complex carbs it's going to give them a lot of fuel, the right kind of fuel to sustain their blood sugars and to keep them energized and performing well. And a lot of, the healthy fats too, ensuring they're getting that also in their diet and the right amount of hydration as well. So it can be a little daunting with some of them. And the great thing is depending on what they do in the military, some of them are very motivated. Like they really want to learn and they'll do exactly what I tell them to do,
nice.
Which is awesome. Some of them, it depends on the person, but some of them want something a little bit less specific. It just, depends. But I think ultimately it's getting to know who they are, what I can do to help them get that nutrition in within their particular schedules in a way that's going to be very easy and where they don't have to think too much about it because they're so busy and the mission is pretty intense for some of these guys. I've had the opportunity in 20 years of Air Force service, to see what a lot of them do for a living. And it's incredible to me how they are, like the maintainers, for example, are up there in the aircraft, like consorting their bodies in these crazy ways for hours at a time. And that is, it really causes some problems down the road in their body if they're not taking care of their body, especially during that time frame. Like, they're going to see problems later on. So what I try to do is have them in a specific type of healthy lifestyle that they can sustain within their particular schedules, that's going to keep them functioning as long as possible and functioning well in what they do. So that's what I try to do with them from a nutrition standpoint. But everyone is so different. It's like a snowflake. They're all different.
Yeah, and then they might get motivated for a second and then they just move on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
And I was looking at you. I'm like, you're so pretty, and you are a lieutenant colonel.
Yes.
How is that? Like, I'm gonna pause all this nutrition stuff.
Sure.
I'm just curious, like, to be a pretty lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. That sounds like. How many people were hating on you?
It's funny you ask that, because I've actually had other people ask me similar questions about what it was like, more like what it was like to be a female in the military and to gain rank and be in charge of a lot of males. It's a male, more male dominant. And I had a lot of people working for me that were male and female, both civilians, military alike. And I guess for the longest time, I never really thought much about it. I truly didn't. I didn't ever see a difference between how I was treated versus my male counterpart. But as I gained rank, I started to see it a little bit more. And I was trying to stay very open-minded. I tried very hard not to form conclusions on things without, causing like extra anxiety for no reason. But I tried to step back and kind of take a different perspective. But once I started to kind of get up to the ranks of major to lieutenant colonel time frame, there is a lot of competition, in terms of with your peers to make those next ranks. I mean, it's cutthroat in that sense, and it's that way across really any job if you think about it. When you're competing for promotion, you're competing against other people, and sometimes I'd be competing against females, sometimes it was males, it was both. And the males, I noticed there was some times where they were advancing faster than me, and although I knew, or at least I thought I knew, that I was putting in twice the time of work and hard work. I don't think I've ever worked as hard as I did when I was active duty. And it just, and talk about not taking care of myself. I mean, I did what I could, but I just didn't put my health as a priority. It was all about the mission. And my life was really my work, truly. So with that said, I would see sometimes my male counterparts advance quicker than me, and knowing that, or thinking I knew that I was doing much more in all facets of what I was doing at the time. Fast forward, it took me a while to realize that, first of all, there's no way of me knowing that. I don't walk in their shoes. I don't live in their shoes. I don't know what they do every day. They could be outperforming me. Maybe I just think I'm outperforming them, but it could be just the opposite. They could be putting in more hours of time than I am. I don't know. I just assumed I was working harder than them because I didn't think anybody could work harder than what I was putting forward at the time. So it took kind of a reality check and kind of stepping back saying, you know what, I need to stop worrying about them. Let them do their thing. I'm proud of them, be happy for them, maybe emulate them. What are things about them, being the men or even the females too, obviously that they're doing great things. What can I learn from them, to improve myself, right? And also be happy for them at the same token. Now that took a lot of time and maturity. Like we're talking years of getting to that point. Yes, this did not happen overnight.
A lot of women get very bitter in the military because of what they see happen, and they do sometimes assume that they're putting a lot of extra effort, but they're not getting the rewards for that. But they see other people getting that instead, and it creates some bitterness and it creates resentment, and ultimately what that does, it just hurts you. It's like this disease, like inside, that starts stewing, and
and they're not thinking about what you're doing, but you're spending all this time and energy worrying about them. So if you free yourself of that and just be happy for them, let them do their thing, you focus on you and be the best possible you can be. And so when I had that kind of transition, that's where I really started to advance. Yeah. But unfortunately, that was at the very end of my career. So I finally got it down 20 years in, and then I retire.
Oh gosh.
Define irony, you know? I mean, so it's kind of funny. I look back at it, and I would have stayed in longer in the Air Force, but there were just so many moves that my family was ready for me to retire. And that's the main reason I did it at the time. But I often wonder what I could have given back to the Air Force and to the people with the wisdom that I finally achieved at that point.
Well, you could always help out, and you could always go there and have, speeches. And
that's right. That's right. And I've kind of looking at some of those opportunities to share some of this with people. Yeah. But it's funny because I remember people telling me some of these things, but I wasn't ready to receive it yet. And I think you reach a point in your life where you may be more open to that way of thinking, and that's when the light bulb comes on.
Everybody just has their own time.
They do, and I've met people that have that wisdom, and they're in their 20s, and they've already got that figured out. It took me much longer, but I'm just grateful I figured it out, because there's some people that go their whole lives and are very maybe resentful and maybe even jealous of other people, and that is not a good way to live. It is not. No, it will only hurt you.
Healthy,
right? It is. Yeah, exactly. It's really going to break down your mental health, affect sleep, affects everything. And why do that to yourself? We all have our own superpowers. It's just a matter of figuring out what that is, and then sharing it with the world.
Looks like yours. You have the wisdom.
Well, I don't know. I still have a ways to go. I do have a ways to go, but I'm getting closer. I was going to tell you, I did find my superpower. One thing I didn't share with you is I have my own little TV show now. I'm the host and producer. Yes, that's something we hadn't talked about. It's called Vegas Saints. So what my job is, it's a 5-minute segment, and I go around the whole community trying to find people who have extraordinary stories that are willing to share them, inspiring stories of conquering huge obstacles in their lives, helping other people, helping animals, doing good things that inspire others. And I feel like that is what I'm meant to do, because by my involvement in that and that airing actually across the globe, what that does is hopefully inspires other people. They see the stories of these individuals doing amazing things for other people, for humanity, and they ask themselves, gosh, I need to be doing more. Maybe I need to do some things that would be good, to help other people, or help myself, or help the community, or help. There's just so many ways of looking at it in terms of giving, and we do. I think now more than ever. Yeah.
Do you take recommendations? Because the guy that Greg, the guy I filmed my previous episode, he actually does a lot with for the homeless. So I can totally.
I would love to connect with him. And it's funny you mentioned that, because and that's the kind of thing that I want. Because those kinds of people are extraordinary to me. They give so much of themselves to help others. It blows my mind. It really does.
You would really like
it just makes me honored and privileged to be around people like that, because it makes me better to be around them. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, I will connect you with some people.
I would love that. Thank you. That would be wonderful.
Yeah. I have a few on my list. I'm going to go with the Ozempic, because it's a big deal. And everybody talks about that.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on those?
Well, I'll share a personal story on that. If it's, this may be TMI, but, and some may look at this in a negative way, and that's okay. It's okay. I'm an open book. So I really am. And I work with people on Ozempic, and I help them in that journey, because what I find is people on the weight loss medications sometimes just don't eat enough. They're just not hungry, so they don't eat enough, and they start seeing muscle loss, and they start seeing hair loss, and
gosh.
Exactly. So you don't want to go that direction either. So it's a matter of ensuring they're meeting their targets for protein, for fluid, for just overall nutrients, and they're staying well nourished. But if they're doing that, they're still going to see a weight loss, but it'll be more of a fat loss versus muscle, and they're maintaining a better body composition, and it's going to help their metabolic health too. So I feel what I was getting at is that I have also tried Ozempic. So what I struggle with, yes, I have. I sure have. And I'm glad we're talking about this because I think there's a lot of people that don't share their stories on things, especially dietitians. We're not really open on things like this. I've struggled with very unhealthy relationships with food from a very young age. And also with the Ozempic piece, this is a new thing for me, but within the past 3 years, I've had a very hard time controlling the amount of food I eat in terms of sweets. I will get a hold of them, and then I keep thinking about them, and it just takes all my brain space. I keep thinking about the food, and I keep getting up and getting more and more. This happens at night. And there's no reason for me to do that. Like, I can't figure out what the root cause is. So I'm working with a therapist right now trying to figure that out. And I think that all of us need that support, you know, especially if we're dealing with these things that are making us feel really crummy about ourselves. Because when you start binging on foods, you know, and overdoing it, it makes you feel really bad about yourself. And then you can get depressed, and then you kind of start isolating yourself. And it's this vicious cycle. You know, and I think there's a lot of people that struggle with this that aren't open about talking about it because it's embarrassing to them. And I'm a dietitian. I work with people who have these problems, and I experience it myself.
Which is why you are a great dietitian, because
so
you can relate.
I understand. Yes, I understand what's going on with them. And so Ozempic has helped me because it takes away that food noise. So you don't think about food. It doesn't consume your brain like it would normally. Right? And it also really reduces the cravings, because what it does, it affects the hypothalamus of the brain, which controls that. And so through the chemicals in the brain, it alters that in a sense where you don't have those kinds of cravings. You don't think about food all the time, and you have this peace. You know, it's just a wonderful thing. So I do feel like there's certain people that really would benefit from it, but it is not the one solution, meaning that if they take that and they're not taking care of themselves, not eating well, not sleeping well, stress, not exercising, they're not going to be able to keep that weight off. So once they get off the medication, they can gain it back. So you have to make the lifestyle changes and with the medication, and make sure you're eating enough, and you're taking good care of yourself, and you're losing weight at a slower rate, about 1/2 pound to 2 pounds a week, which is going to help you not only keep it off, but maintain that muscle mass too. So, but I do think it helps a lot of people. I don't necessarily think it's for everyone, and there's a lot of people out there who are very skeptical about it. You know, it is a new thing. So what are the side effects? You know, and there are some people experience nausea from it. It slows gastric emptying. So what that means is that food sits in your stomach longer, you know, and some people can get esophageal reflux, that burning up there, right? Because food's just kind of in there a longer period of time. But it does create that satiety feeling, so they're not as hungry. And because they're not as hungry, they can go the whole day sometimes without eating. And when I hear they're doing that, you know, I have to kind of rein them back and explain to them the importance of still fueling themselves correctly.
Because you're about eating them 3 meals a day.
Because they're going to see because they're going to see a weight loss anyway if they're not doing the binge eating and the compulsive overeating at night or whenever that happens for them. So they're going to see a weight loss immediately from not doing that, which is what the medication really helps with. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't not eat at all, even though they feel full. They need to continue eating. About every 3 to 4 hours, small frequent meals, getting the protein foods in first, especially if they have nausea. So at least I know they get the protein in to help sustain that muscle.
I heard that. So wouldn't apple cider vinegar help with suppressing those? Yeah,
I think it can. Absolutely.
Or
I know a lot of people.
Homeopathic?
I think it's great, and it's not going to hurt you. You know, I think things like that perfectly fine.
Just okay.
Perfectly fine.
And what about? Because I heard a lot of bad stuff about not working out. Apparently, a lot of people take Ozempic and they disregard the gym. So is it possible that you can end up having ALS, or maybe not ALS, but like some type of muscle deterioration?
Atrophy, yes,
Atrophy.
and loss of muscle, absolutely. So I'm glad you brought that up, because the protein piece of maintaining that protein and getting that in, depending on the person and what their age is and their height and their weight and all that, determines their protein needs. But in addition to that, I always make sure they're doing resistance training at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Dang.
Usually full body workouts, trying to work everything. That is key to help maintaining their muscle. What had happened to me the first time I tried one of these medications is I lost 2 pounds of muscle. And I was still doing some exercise, but I wasn't doing enough resistance training like I should. And I wasn't as mindful of getting that protein in. I was getting protein in, but maybe not as much as I actually needed. So I learned the hard way. I did. And I should know better, right? But it just kind of sneaks up on you, so you really have to know, what you're doing, maybe even log your food to keep track of what you're taking in. See if you're meeting your protein targets and your fluid targets and that and all that, and making sure you make time within the week to get that resistance training in. So important. I'm so glad you mentioned that. It doesn't have to be just lifting weights. It can be using bands, machines. I do a lot of yoga and Pilates, which is your own body weight. And that is a form of resistance training.
Yeah.
Swimming is cardio and resistance training both, one of the best exercises, So there's just so many different ways you could do it, but the key is to pick something you enjoy, because then you'll be more apt to do it. Right? No one wants to necessarily go to the gym just to go. They want to go and maybe go to a class or something that they find a lot of enjoyment in. So that way you'll at least keep doing it, which is what's important.
Yeah, I will let them know. I have some friends that are doing this thing now, and they don't work out. I keep
I'd be
reminding
happy
them.
to talk to them. I really do deal a lot with people.
I don't have to bomb you with all kinds of people.
I'd be happy to help them. That's what I do, and I don't charge a penny. I just want to help people. Yes, I just want to help them. I work in a couple different, outside of Weight Watchers, a place called Du Rose out here. It's a medical spa, and I help people that are taking those medications. And I do it at Weight Watchers too. So I've learned so much about it and what. Everybody's again different, but what works typically for most, just maintaining that muscle mass, keeping that body composition where it needs to be, seeing the weight loss, but seeing it in the right ways, and losing more body fat, improving their metabolic health. That's the key.
That is awesome.
Yeah, but I'd be happy to help them.
Yeah.
You can connect us for sure.
I will. I definitely will. And for people, it's actually, I'm going to also say it at the end, but to follow you and reach you, is it Instagram?
Yes. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and it's just my first and last name. So Lisa, Lisa, and my last name's Tauai. So it's Tauai. A lot of vowels. My husband's Samoan, so that's where my last name.
I say Tauai. I guess.
Yeah, that's the right way to pronounce it.
Okay,
that's perfect. That's perfect. My favorite way, I think, somebody called me Twee once. They're like, Twee. I'm like,
no.
I'm like, I'll answer anything. It's fine. The first time you don't succeed, Tauai again. That's a good way to remember it.
Yes, I remember.
I know it's kind of silly, but it's a good way to remember it.
I like that. Yes. Should we do a little? It's called the Mythbusters.
Yeah.
Me and my myth.
Sure, of course.
Identify whether each statement is a myth or a fact, and briefly explain why.
Okay.
Eating after 8 p.m. always leads to weight gain. Myth or fact?
I'd say myth. Okay. And again, everybody's different, but I would say that the closer you eat to bedtime, it's going to impact your sleep. And I would also caveat with saying that if you're going to eat that late in the evening, make sure it's not too big of a meal. Maybe a light snack. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right.
Carbohydrates make you gain weight more than other foods. Myth or fact?
Myth. Yeah, carbohydrates get a bad reputation. I feel so bad for carbohydrates. I feel so sorry for them.
Really?
Yeah. So
tell me more, because I'm trying to avoid all of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who do. And again, it could be, it's very individualized. So I have people that are on very low carb diets and they feel good and they can sustain that.
But I love bread and pasta.
And pizza. And it's just hard to sustain because so many of our foods have carbohydrate. The thing about carbohydrates is about choosing the right kind of carbohydrates. So you want to choose more of a complex carbohydrate. So that's going to be your whole grain breads and cereals, your starches, also your fruits. Great food. I mean, they are loaded with, of course, sugar, a natural sugar, but so many nutrients and things you cannot replicate in any kind of supplement. the nutrients that are found in those, we are just scraping the surface on how beneficial they are to your health. So I don't want people to take those out of their diet. Now, do I want them to eat a whole watermelon? Probably not, okay? So it's about portions, it's about everything in moderation. I have a fruit for each meal to include a fruit.
Really?
You know, yeah, absolutely. And not all fruits are created equal, so you want to, fresh fruit's always better, frozen fruit's good too. Canned fruit's fine, as long as it's in its own juices or water is going to be a good choice.
Ah, okay.
I'd watch the juices just because they're so concentrated in sugar, but as long as it's 100% juice and you're watching the portion size, that counts too. So that's a good form of carbohydrate. Also dairy products, you know, if you like skim milk, that's loaded with calcium, vitamin D, all kinds of nutrients, protein, yogurts, the Greek yogurts are my favorite. They tend to be lower in sugar, higher in protein. Cottage cheese has got a tremendous amino acid in it called leucine, which is fantastic for recovery after workouts, one of the best. So those types of foods people may automatically take out because they are a carb. They've got protein as well. But, you know, if they can tolerate them okay and they want to include dairy in their diet, perfectly fine. So the carbs that I'm talking about that you want to limit are the ones we all know don't have much nutritional value. Cookies, cakes, pies, you know, your regular soda, regular Kool-Aid, a lot of sugar, just like table sugar kinds of products. And sugar's found in so many things, So that's what you want to really control.
My cookies.
Just remember that carbohydrates are your main energy source for your brain and for your muscles. So that's why I try to encourage people at least meet a minimum amount of carbohydrates for them throughout the day, but choosing the right kinds of carbohydrate, key.
That's interesting. And you know what? The craziest thing, tomato being a fruit, and then the tomato having like a high amount of nicotine inside. I was like,
I haven't heard that one either.
Nicotine is actually healthy.
Okay,
and
I'm
like,
taking mental notes here. I'm like, I haven't heard that one. Okay, I'll look at that one too.
I'm like, really? Is that why I'm craving so many tomatoes lately?
I don't know.
Anyway, I deviate.
That's a good one.
But organic foods are more nutritious than non-organic foods, myth or fact? I think that's rhetorical.
I would say that's a myth.
Okay.
I would say that there are some things that, not more nutritional per se, but I do think there are some foods that if you do prefer to shop more organic because you want to limit the pesticides and the chemicals and all that, which I completely understand, I would choose foods that, for instance, produce, foods that you're going to eat the actual skin, like apples, grapes, berries. Those I'd probably recommend organic. Yes. Canned foods or whatever, like, I think you can end up spending more money on shopping with, you know, getting organic, and it may not be necessary in a lot of the different foods. And they're definitely, there's no difference in nutritional value. The difference resides in that pesticides and the chemicals. And then even then, unless they're certified a specific way, you don't really fully know if they're truly organic. So you may be paying a lot more money for it not really being what you think it is. It's really tricky.
Wild.
And it's expensive. It's really expensive to shop organic. So I would say just there's certain things that you'd want, like the produce I was telling you about. I call it the dirty dozen. So those are all the foods, produce specific, where you eat the skin. You just eat it. You always want to wash it, clean it before you eat it, always.
Do you wash it with anything in particular, or just
with water, and usually that vegetable or produce spray that they have.
That they might also have some other chemicals in it?
I know. It's so tricky.
Baking soda?
It's so tricky.
Would that help?
Yeah, baking soda is fine. Or even just water. If you're really washing it good with water, that should be sufficient to get off anything that could be on there.
Okay.
Yeah. These are great questions and things that I know a lot of people think about. And I don't blame them, because you just, some of this can be unsettling, not really knowing, what they're using in these chemicals, and our country operates quite a bit different from other countries in our food supply and how they grow things. And I got the pleasure of living in Europe for 5 years, absolutely loved it. So got to see
Germany, was it?
It was Germany, loved it, and got to see truly firsthand how fresh their food is there and how different it is from our food supply.
It's wild.
So
the same product.
So I think we have to be a little bit more cognizant of what we're taking in and really looking at those labels and kind of taking a little more time to make good choices, better choices.
Cognizant is a nice way to put it. I'll be like suspicious, skeptical.
It can be, yeah. It can drive you that way sometimes.
I am like, man, what am I eating here?
Yeah, it can be challenging. I know, and I talk to a lot of people about those concerns for sure. So, just think of it this way: try to look at progress versus perfection. So it doesn't have to be perfect in all of those things. As long as you're kind of making strides in the right direction, you're doing your body good.
That's nice.
It doesn't have to be perfect.
Better than,
It's better than not looking at all and not
That's true.
paying any attention to anything like that. Right.
Because the mental is important too.
Right. Because it can be a crazy maker, focusing on all that, and you've got all these other things in your life you're focusing on. It's just a lot.
You're stressing yourself out.
Yes, it's a lot for your brain to comprehend and process.
True.
So.
Yeah, but I've been going there with apps and stuff. I'm like, let me see.
Oh yeah, there's some apps on. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What is this ingredient?
I need to start using some of those more because they are really good tools. I started to use them and then I forget they're around unless I use them frequently. So I need to start doing that more because there's some good ones out there.
Some really good ones.
Tell you that things are a little less processed and what to watch out for. And
even the Meta glasses. Hey Meta, what am I looking at? Oh, is this ingredient? And then it'll just tell you.
Yes. I know we have so much technology now. It's just right at our fingertips. So I always tell people, if you feel comfortable with technology, use it. Even if you don't feel comfortable, start getting a little more comfortable with it, and use these things because they're for tools for us, to make better informed decisions, right?
Yeah. Some things. You need to drink at least 8 glasses of water every day to stay hydrated. Myth or fact?
Hydration needs are different for each person. So a good way to determine how much fluid you need a day, and it doesn't have to be just water. We'll talk about the different types of fluids in just a second, but take your current body weight, whatever that is, and divide it in half. And that's how many ounces of fluid ideally you need. Now, if you're working outside or if you're exercising a lot, you may need more fluid than that. But that's kind of the baseline. So once you have that number, then focus on trying to get most of that fluid from water. But you can also drink, coffees, teas, non-caloric beverages. It's hard for me to count sodas, alcohol, and energy drinks as part of your fluid intake. Just morally, I just can't make myself do it. But every other fluid really will count. Even juice or milk or soy milk or those all count towards your fluid. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be just water because sometimes it's hard to think about drinking that much water. I get some people that need upwards of 90 ounces of fluid a day, and they're like, I have to drink that in water. I'm like, oh no, there's other fluids that will count. So, but fluid is the forgotten nutrient, specifically water, and it is a game changer. If you are not staying hydrated, it is going to start affecting how you perform. You'll see it physically. Yes, it's crazy. So stay hydrated, everyone. Very important, especially living out here.
Oh, so you read my mind.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Summer months are ahead, and man, oh man, we need fluid. A lot. I mean, so much more needs go up out here for sure in the desert, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I think you mentioned something. You said something earlier, and we'll get to that. What was it? I can't remember.
Oh, I was mentioning the different types of fluids. That's what I. So so different. Juice would count as a fluid. Coffee, tea. Let's see, the soy milks, the almond milks, coconut milk, any of those kinds of things. Cow's milk. All of that counts towards your fluid. Yes.
Oh, I should be good then.
Yes. Exactly.
I had about 2 Celsius today.
Yeah, there you go. So and then you count that with all the water you're drinking, and you may be doing really good. Remember, though, that there is such a thing as drinking too much, believe it or not. So, and I've experienced that. I used to drink about a gallon of water a day, and I got some blood work done, and I realized that my sodium level was low. And it can cause hyponatremia, which is low sodium in your blood, and that can be a problem. So it could really hurt you. And you don't necessarily feel it, unless it gets really bad. But I wasn't aware that was happening until I had my blood drawn, right? So then I realized, hey, I may be drinking too much for myself. I just feel like especially when you get used to drinking a lot of water, it feels like you have to keep drinking it. Like you feel like you're dehydrated all the time if you don't. So it took me a while to cut down a little bit, but I'm drinking about half of that now that I used to.
Interesting.
It's just trying to find the right fit for you, but half your body weight in ounces is the goal.
That's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is amazing to know. And I want to do a little flavorful descriptions game.
Oh, okay.
Challenge your guests to describe healthy plant-based food options so appealingly that they make even the most indulgent-sounding fast foods dull in comparison.
Oh boy, okay. This is one of my go-to healthy meals that I make that I just think is fantastic. Just saying, fantastic. So I take salmon, the fillets of salmon. I bring out my air fryer.
Okay.
And so after the salmon's thawed, I put that in the air fryer. I put a little bit of seasoning on it, put it in there for about 400 degrees for 10 minutes, and I usually have to flip it. When it's done, it is so flaky and crunchy around the sides and so moist. And you're getting all this like wonderful nutrients in it. I mean, it's rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which is a great fat for your heart, for your brain. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. So you have that, rich in protein. I mean, just it's wonderful. It tastes delicious. And then on the side, and this is a really quick meal, I'll make a healthy type of grain, and I've been dabbling in different types. So instead of doing just the plain, the rice or even the brown rice, I'm doing farro or buckwheat or what's the other one I did recently? Quinoa, of course, couscous. So some of these grains are really high in protein, and when you make them just like you would rice, except they take a little more water in the preparation, usually double the water that rice does, or you can use a pressure cooker and make them in those. They come out so perfect.
Oh my God, I'm so hungry.
And you add a little bit, I usually add a little black pepper to it, throw in maybe some other, different seasonings, which are also can be very rich in antioxidants and phytochemicals and really good. I don't add salt. I actually add all kinds of other seasonings. Yeah, I vary it up. I use all kinds of different things. And oregano, basil, thyme, I mean, you name it, I use it. So throw in a little bit of that and just takes a second. And then I have a vegetable with it. And that varies. The vegetable also varies. I try to change it up. So the vegetable, it's usually like an asparagus,
nice.
Or my favorite is,
zucchini.
Believe it or not, Brussels sprouts. They smell up your house real bad. So some of these foods are going to make your house smell bad, but boy, they taste good.
Especially if you know how to make them.
Yes, and I usually roast the Brussels sprouts. And I just do just a simple extra virgin olive oil and some seasonings, and then put them out on a sheet pan and bake them, and they come out perfect every time. And I just know that meal not only tastes delicious, it is doing my body so much good. Like, I just feel like I could leap tall buildings, It's amazing how when you fuel your body right, the way you can perform is just beyond what you think you could do. And you don't know this until you try it. So have your fast food meal now and then, but notice how you feel after eating a meal like that. It may taste really good, right?
Sluggish.
But is it worth how you feel later? No. Maybe not. Maybe it is sometimes. You have to make that choice. So, but I'd rather feel good and energized and be able to give my best self to the world. And that's why I choose to eat the way I do.
Yeah, I think because I watched The Earthlings, a documentary.
Ooh, that's a good.
And I know how they cooked their ground meat and what they did to them cows and upside down.
Yes, and you know what? I forgot to mention that's one of the other reasons I went more plant-based, because of the way they treat the animals.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, it is heartbreaking to me. I'm a huge animal lover. I love them all. The only thing I can't warm up to is a tarantula, and maybe one day I'll be able to. I don't know, but I love everything else. I love all God's creatures, great and small. Yes, and to know that they're treated in such a horrible way breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the way I'm eating now for that reason too. It's just I'm one person of millions, but I like to believe I'm making even a tiny change.
I'm sure.
Even just a tiny one. I'm good with that.
And that's it's wild how many people just buy a lot of meat for no reason, and then they throw it away, and it's like, dang, do you know that was a poor little animal that was slaughtered?
That's right.
And they could feel the pain.
Yes.
They knew they were about to be killed because they could hear their little buddy being killed. So it's like they don't really the depth doesn't exist. And the shallowness and selfishness.
That's right. And and I don't think they just don't think about things like that. I know when I was a kid, because I ate meat growing up completely. And as a kid, I never put like a little face to that meat. I never thought about that. I don't know if many kids do. They probably don't. And even adults, they just don't make that connection. But once you make that connection and you see and learn more about what's going on in these slaughterhouses, it's heartbreaking. And I just don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah. And actually a very interesting story that I'm going to share. My friends went to China. They went on nothing wrong with China, but just to each his own. But they went there to visit, I don't know, to just check out the country, I guess. And they saw these puppies in a store. And then there was this fluffy, them little fluffy ones that are adorable?
Yes.
And she fell in love with this one. She's like, I want
They're too cute.
Just adorable. It was like this little fluffy one. They're just too cute. It's so playful. And she's like, okay, I want this dog. And they were like, okay, we'll bring him right back. So, they waited about 20 minutes. They were thinking, maybe he's getting some injections. They're preparing the puppy to bring to sell.
Right.
Okay, so here you go. There's a bag. My friend was like, maybe it's the little bed, or maybe, they're putting some stuff, some belongings, and there's a bunch of meat in the bag. They went in the back, they killed the puppy, slaughtered the puppy that she loved, that she wanted to buy alive, gave her the meat, and she fainted. So America's not at that level yet, but to me it's
I'm
like...
gonna have nightmares on that one.
Yeah, she's still like, I'm never going back.
Traumatized. I didn't even know that happened. I had no idea. And that, I guess I'm naive in that sense for sure, that there's these things I know go on in the world, and it's hard for me to process it. And sometimes I don't even want to know, but then if we don't know, how can we help? How can we do our part in helping make sure that doesn't happen? Or, you know what I mean? And I just have so much respect for anything that's living. In fact, you want to hear a funny story, so
let's make it funny, please.
Oh yeah, let me give you a funny story. So I love, like I said, all creatures great and small too. I'm one of the people that, now granted, I wouldn't do this on a busy freeway. I promise you I wouldn't do that. I would not put anybody's lives at risk by doing this. But this was more in the country when I lived back in Missouri. I grew up in Missouri. I'd be driving and I'd see one of those really fluffy caterpillars on the road. That's especially when my eyesight was like really good, back then, so I could see it, right? And I was like, oh, a big caterpillar. I'd dodge it. I would not want to hit it in my car. Like I would literally move around it. And when I was riding bikes, same thing. Like I don't want to, even ants. Like I'll see ants on the ground and I will walk around them. Like I just don't. everything has a right to live.
Well, you need to be interviewed on that same show too.
So I don't know, and I'm always baffled by, especially if people intentionally hurt them, and that to me usually tells me they may not be the best people. They may not have a good
They may
heart,
not, for sure.
And
not.
I just stay away from them.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they're terrible. It depends on what it is, but still, I typically, people that love animals, I usually believe that they have, they have a better heart. They're better
animals and
people.
Children, like
good people.
They're innocent. Like, what would you?
Exactly. And everybody has.
I'm
everything
with you on
has
the
a right
fish.
to live.
Because even Jesus ate fish. So because you got to eat something.
Right.
But sometimes, because you know how I was vegan, I told you, for 6 years, and I got sick, and they told me at least have some chicken. But even when I eat the chicken, I'm always trying to not to think what I'm eating, because I know so much about. They're so intelligent. Chickens are really intelligent.
They really
They're
are
affectionate, and they have so many qualities.
I'm convinced a lot of these animals are smarter than people. Let's just get that out there.
Yes.
They may be. Yeah, and with fish, I'm actually kind of exploring some. ordering fish from specific places that are legit in the way they raise them.
Yes.
Like literally going outside this whole area into other states. And I listen to podcasts that are run by dietitians that have this kind of these kinds of resources at their disposal and know these kinds of organizations that do those kinds of things. So I'm planning on going even that direction.
So wild caught, not farm raised.
Right. And truly wild caught, so they, there was no chance of them being in some sort of confined space and not
who knows
not
what they were
conditions. Fed and exactly what they were fed. So yeah, it's there. I know we won't be able to solve all the problems of the world in our talk today, but it's still nice to talk about it and know that there's people out there like you that are cognizant of these things and doing your part to make things better. And I think if we all did that, can you imagine how great this world would be?
I know, that would be amazing. Yeah. How would you entice someone to choose a roasted vegetable platter over a steak?
Oh, boy, that's a challenge, Shanna, because I know people love their steaks.
They love their steaks. I don't get it.
Oh, goodness. Oh, that is really a good one. I think taking the angle of the way you cook the vegetable, first of all, to make it, I call it el dente, with a small crunch, but that's kind of soft too. It's like in between. That's the key.
Like the al dente pasta?
Yes.
Like a little bit crunchy.
Al dente, yes. It's like the perfect way to cook it. Yes, so it's like right in between.
Nice.
It's not too crunchy, it's not too soft. It's right in the middle. And again, with the right seasonings, oh my goodness, you can season them in a way that makes it absolutely delicious. And then, but see, that probably still won't entice them to choose it, to choose it over the steak. I think you'd have to take it the next level. And that's where I would start kind of talking about what's in those foods based on maybe what kinds of problems they may have in their health and what those foods can do to help them feel better, get off the medications, be able to live a healthier, longer life, be able to see their grandkids, get married someday.
Have pretty skin like yours.
So it's, and it's called treating the roots. You treat the inside, it reflects on the outside, So, but yes, I think I'd have to take it that next level to truly entice them, because that's a tough one. Yes, when you got a steak versus vegetables, I think I would say, I'd venture to say at least 7 or 8 out of 10 would choose the steak. I could be wrong,
No,
but
I think you're right.
It would be a harder sell. But I think I would take those approaches.
That's smart, though. And it's you're doing it with tact, you're doing it with class. I would be, watch here. I literally would play the earthlings.
Yeah, and then I could also go the other direction and tell them about the steak and what's in there, and some of the, even like how they cook it, the carcinogens and and red meat. Oh boy. Yeah, you have to, there's, I don't want to scare people. I don't want to freak them out and make them have this bad relationship with different types of foods. That's never my intent. But I think knowledge is power, and I think that we have a choice in what we choose to eat. Actually, food is one of the biggest things in your life you can control, if you think about it.
Yeah.
It really is. So, so just, having that steak now and then if that's what they want, but most of the time choosing, something a little bit better. It's
balance.
It's a balance. It is a balance, absolutely. Every day, a balance.
Another conspiracy thing, because every time I catch you, I'm always with the conspiracy questions.
And some of these are new to me. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back and do my research on a couple of these. I'm like, wow, you stumped me.
But it could be, I don't know. But I have another one. Is it true that they might actually inject cows with COVID-19 vaccine?
Oh, that I haven't heard.
That's what I heard.
I know with hormones, I know that's a big deal with the meat. And
no wonder.
If you notice how big the chicken breasts are now, I'm like, I don't think that happens in nature. It really makes you wonder. It does. I mean, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but it does make you wonder.
Especially
so I've not heard about the COVID-19 piece, though.
Yeah.
Where did you see that one or hear about that?
Different studies. Different articles mentioning that that's what they're doing. But
what would be the reason behind that?
Well, so we can eat that? I don't know. I'm not eating it. Shoot.
Oh my gosh.
I don't how, but that's.
Oh my goodness! I know our viewers will be like, "What are we left to eat now? Like, what do we do now? What's the next step?"
Vegetables. Plant your own.
There you go, plant your own. And you want to hear something so funny? Oh my gosh, it's so funny you bring that up.
Oh my goodness.
Plant your own. Yes. Have more sustainability. So important. I just went through a horticulture class. My goal is to be a master gardener.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and I've learned so much. I just got my certification through UNR.
You have to teach me too.
And it's fascinating.
Really?
Yes, it's fascinating. I'm working on, I have a composter now, so I take all of the waste from like fruits and vegetables and I compost that and I add it to the soil. And I'm building my own garden in my house in the desert and trying to grow my own produce.
Very nice.
So, and it's really kind of fun
or
outside.
You have like machines. Oh, so
outside in the ground, not even a raised bed. Wow. So yeah, so I'm kind of way going outside my comfort zone, but I've learned a lot in the course.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just there's something to be said about growing your own. Then you know there's no pesticides. There's not all of these things.
Unless geoengineering is happening and then they be spraying that.
Hopefully that's not happening.
I'm telling you guys, this is like this lady's on a...
But it's I figure if you can grow things in the desert, you can grow them anywhere, right? And it'll save me money because produce is not cheap. I get a lot of frozen produce because it's so it's more inexpensive and it lasts longer. But if I can grow my own, you know, I mean, that's really going to save us more money, and especially having a vegan as a son. I mean, he loves his produce, so I'm kind of dabbling in that, and I think it's great. I think that as human beings, we should be prepared at any given point to survive, right?
Yeah.
You know, and as much, by the way, as much as I love animals, because I do love them so much, but if I, you know, had to, you know, kill an animal to survive, you know, that's a whole other story. You know, you do what you have to do, right? And I know how to operate weapons, being in the Air Force. I've never killed anything. I've never done that. I wouldn't know the first thing about that. So I've talked to like hunters that they will do the right thing. They use every piece of that animal when they hunt. And I think there's something to be said about that too, you know?
Oh, wow.
But I don't know if I'm ready for anything like that. That's not really me. Yeah. You know, but I think there is something to be said about surviving.
I think I would end up like that dude in the movie with the berries that died. What is his name? What was that?
It would have to be so extreme. Like I would have to have like nothing. It would have to be a life or death situation. Even then, it would be very hard for me. Yeah, I'm not saying this would be an easy thing.
It would be difficult.
All. It would be very difficult to do because I'd probably be traumatized by doing something like that. But that's why I'm wanting to learn how to grow my own types of things in the ground. You know, plant-based that could live on if you needed to, you know? I mean, why not? Why not learn these skills? There's no harm in learning. Life is learning, right? Every day.
No wonder they don't teach these skills in school.
No, they don't seem to. I know, and it's very sad. A lot of those trades have gone away. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually, we need to link up so I can learn from you too.
Well, the course is very inexpensive.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
please,
it's through the University of Nevada, Reno, and it's a master gardener class. You can look it up online and enroll. I think the next part 2 of the program that I enrolled in is I think starting in. I think it's in December timeframe, I want to say. But part 1, I'm not sure when that rolls around again, but that is all on their website.
It's online. That's good.
Yeah, it's very inexpensive to take, and it's all online, and you have lectures that you can listen in and question and answer sessions. It's just a lot of fun, and it's really informative. Taught me things that I didn't know before. So.
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I want to check that out. Is there any question that you wish I had asked? But I had like.
Oh wow, that's a good one. I would say, if anything, I always love sharing my story in the sense of some obstacles I overcame, and I always like sharing that to people because I'm hoping it'll inspire them to you know, rise above their obstacles. So outside of, you know, my background as a dietitian and the nutrition side of things, it's more of my, and we talked about this maybe a little bit in the first interview.
The myth. The beauty pageant we never talked about.
Oh no, we didn't talk about that. But yeah, and that was just been an amazing journey. I mean, I love pageantry, and like I said, I love it mainly because it helps me, first of all, meet some extraordinary people that I would never normally have met. And then also, every time you get on that stage, it's you against you. and you try to do better than you did the time before. And that's what I love about it, because every time I compete, I don't think about my competition. I'm thinking about me as the competition, and I'm trying to do better than I did before. And every time I leave and after a pageant, if I did better than I did before, then that was a success, whether I win or lose.
Wow.
You know, and I love that. That's what I really like doing, and it helps me grow personally and professionally. So I love that. But I would just say that, you know, there's people out there that everybody has their own struggles and their own stories and their own journeys, and I feel that in our own heartache too, frankly. And I just want to say that just don't let that stop you in living your dreams. You know, so when I was young, pretty much through elementary school, grade school, all the way through high school, I was bullied to the nth degree. And I know there's so many other people that could relate to that. And to the point where I would cry myself to sleep at night. I'd be called ugly so many times, all the time, constant. They'd yell it out the bus windows at me. It was every day, without fail. And I just, and you know, when you hear it enough, you start to believe it. And it just really affect my self-esteem. It affect how I saw myself. I never thought I was good enough. And I remember vowing when I was young, and I remember vowing to myself that I will prove them all wrong. Now, what the right way of thinking is I will not prove, like, I'm not out to prove them wrong. I want to show myself that I could do this. But back then, that's what motivated me, is proving them wrong. And so, and I have. I mean, I went from that to now, you know, pageantry, modeling, you know, all these things that I knew when I was young, I wanted to do that. I was going to do that. You know, so I think you have a choice. People have choices. You know, when you are faced with these obstacles, you can either dwell on that and keep it from you becoming your best self, or you can use that as ammunition and like fuel to just do what you were meant to do and shine. And that's what I would share with them. I always like sharing that with people. You know, just don't let those bad things that people say and do affect you. You know, let it motivate you to be the best you can be. So, I'm still learning and growing, but it helped me a lot. So, you know, frankly, I wouldn't want anything different. If I had to start all over again, I'd want the same experience, because it made me who I am today. As hard as that was, and that's only one experience.
And punch them a little bit.
And I've never been trip them while they're. I've never been the bully, and I think people find people that they can just target, you know, to make themselves feel more powerful and better by putting others down. And to me, that's very sad. And I will never be one of those people. I look at people and I find something about them I like, and I compliment them, and I'm genuine, and I see them smile, and it turns their day completely around. And that's what life is all about, right?
Yeah, I know.
Be kind and respectful, and treat others like you would want to be treated. Yeah,
I love it. Beautiful.
I love you. I love you, and I just can't thank you enough for having me on your show.
Thank you.
So this is such a huge honor.
I am excited. We finally get a good one, because last time was so short. So I'm glad
This was awesome.
Did it.
This was awesome, and I loved your questions. They were wonderful.
Thank you. Awesome. Anyway,
they made me really think. I'm gonna have to do some homework now.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
So you guys.